Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another program of the Economic Briefcase. I am your host, Noah Japao. It's been a while since we last had a live show. We have a very interesting topic for you tonight, which is the state of the economy, and we have a very renowned economic analyst. We've had him here for, I think, when was that? I think a couple of months ago, 3 months, give or take. We haven't been around for a while. So today we're discussing the state of the economy, and our guest is Mr. DODIA and my co-host.
Thanks for having me, Japao. It's good to be on this show. And what a way to come on this show when we're having Mr. DODIA. Mr. DODIA, welcome. My name's Esias Chone. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, gentlemen.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So before we get into the topic, maybe we look at what's prevailing on the markets, the market update. As of today, the 8th of February, 2024. The four major currencies: the dollar closed selling at 26 kwacha 90. That's very faint. 98 ngwe. The pound closed selling at 33 kwacha 99 ngwe. The euro closed selling at 29 kwacha 3 ngwe. The rand closed selling at 1 kwacha 42 ngwe. Selected metal prices delayed by a day. Copper closed selling at $8,210.50. Aluminium closed selling at $2,229.50. Zinc closed selling at $2,332.50. Lead closed off selling at $2,053.50. Tin closed selling at $25,910. Nickel closed selling at $16,020. Crude oil prices. WTI crude closed selling at $75.50. Brent crude closed selling at $80.92 per barrel. That's all we had for you on the market update. Mr. DODIA, welcome once more.
Thank you very much. Great to be here with you.
I think we should start with the market update itself, and ask you for your comments on the exchange rate as our first question for tonight. From there we can go into the commodity prices briefly.
Great. Well, to me, I think the big question is this: why are we seeing a 27 kwacha US dollar? Because we're saying 26 now, but 2 days ago it was 27 kwacha.
Indeed.
What's led to this? Now, if we go by statistics over the last 5 years, 10 years, we'll know that generally in the months of November and December, we tend to see the kwacha getting very strong. And the reason why the kwacha gets very strong is because in the last 2 months of the year, our huge multinational investors, who represent 80% of our GDP, they bring in foreign currency in order to take care of their year-end obligations. They've got to pay provisional taxes for the fourth quarter. They've got to pay the Christmas bonuses. They've got to renew their lease agreements for services that are offered to them, whether it's security guard services, dustbin collection, transport services, and so forth, and also properties that they are renting. So it's a time of the year when you expect the highest amount of foreign currency to be coming in and propping up the kwacha. But strangely enough, in 2023, we saw that the kwacha started to deteriorate from around the middle of October, and has continued to deteriorate until end of January, and now as we come into February, we're seeing some slight change. And even that slight change is being attributed to the fact that the Bank of Zambia has increased the statutory reserves, not to economic factors. So the question is, why do we have this strange phenomena which does not normally appear in our economy in previous years? The only thing that seems to have happened in the last 3 to 4 months was government announcing the export proceeds tracking framework. This was announced by the Secretary to the Treasury in the first week of October. And since that time, we've seen the kwacha deteriorate. So a lot of speculation out there suggests that this is as a result of a revolt, if you like, by the multinational investors, the huge corporates in Zambia, who are not interested in seeing this export proceeds tracking framework see the light of day. Now the question is, why not? If they are good corporate citizens, they obey the laws of Zambia, why should the large exporters not be interested in it? Well, I guess it helps us to take a leaf from experience that we have had in the past. If you remember, back in 2013, we had statutory instrument number 55, which was the balance of payments monitoring system. And this balance of payments monitoring system was trying to see how are the money flows, inflows and outflows of Zambia. And it was quite strange that the Bank of Zambia would give you wider information on this, but there were multinational companies that were claiming to have loans abroad where the interest rate was in the region of 45%, which even in Zambia, if you get a dollar loan, you are not likely to pay more than 10% interest. So how does a huge multinational borrow at 45% outside? How does a huge multinational have a situation where they engage a company abroad, a consulting firm, to provide management to some mining operation or some huge investment operation in Zambia, where the consultancy fee for management is in the region of $5 to $10 million a month? When we know that 5 to 10 expatriate workers, even if you pay them a fantastic salary of $50,000 a month, which is 1 million kwacha per month in today's money, 10 of them is 10 million kwacha per month. Yes. And 10 million kwacha is not even above $200,000. But somebody wants to say $5 million per month, $10 million per month. So this kind of data that was collected by Bank of Zambia back then became the backbone of putting in place this new framework called the Export Proceeds Tracking Framework.
It's a very recommendable framework.
Yes, but the thing is that, is it strange? No, it's not strange. If you look at South Africa, in South Africa, this framework has been functional for decades. Right now, any of us can go to South Africa, buy a car there, and say, export it to Zambia. In 30 days, the South African Revenue Service will be calling Toyota South Africa and saying, you exported a car for $20,000. Where are the proceeds? We want to see them in the South African bank. The Central Bank of the Reserve Bank of South Africa will also be asking the same questions. So it is something which happens in economies that are much better structured than ours, in economies that recognize that you have a responsibility when you export a product to account for the export earnings in your own economy. And then from there, when these export earnings need to go to some other country or some other business, you are applying certain rules and regulations which are part of international conventions, anti-money laundering conventions, drug trafficking conventions, the arms trading conventions, arms dealing, financing insurgents in other countries. All those types of things are part of the rules and regulations that we have signed as a nation. We have ratified this, and we have a responsibility to report it should we see it happening or stop it. So what does that mean? if we're looking at a departure from the situation that we're in, that we've been in, is that prior to 1st January 2024, when the export proceeds tracking framework was implemented, you could export for $5 million worth of exports. You bring into Zambia only the amount of money you need to deal with your obligations in Zambia. The rest of the money you could go and fund a terrorist organization who would pay you double. You'd make a lot of money by funding terrorism. So the question really here was that we decided that we must become a good corporate international citizen, following the rules and regulations that are set out by the United Nations. And this is what led us to implement this new program called the Export Proceeds Tracking Framework.
You are watching the Economic Briefcase. Today on the show we have Mr. DODIA. Feel free to send in your messages through the numbers that are scrolling down your screen. And later we'll be opening the phone lines. Also feel free to call in and contribute to the show.
Yeah, so what happens now? You have a situation where government says, firstly, we are seeing that we are exporting a whole lot of products from Zambia and we have no capacity to monitor it. I think the Minister of Finance has mentioned it time and time again in the last 2-3 years. The President of the Republic of Zambia, Mr. Hichilema, has said the same thing many times before. So the question really is that the way we can monitor it beyond the actual goods and services being taken out of the country is through the receipting, the money which is being paid for these products, so that you are, as a Zambia Revenue Authority, you are seeing these are the export licenses, this is what has gone out, these are the receipts, this is what has come in, and you can be able to tax your business equitably.
We are discussing the state of the economy, and you've mentioned one of those good initiatives that have been brought about. But still, we are not seeing change. Apart from that, we are not seeing an exchange rate that responds to market
to this initiative. Absolutely.
Initiative, and also other market sentiments that are supposed to actually show through the exchange rate.
Absolutely.
For its market.
But you see, you have to look at it from where we start, and that's why I took time to look at Statutory Instrument number 55 of 2013. It was revoked after 3 months for reasons best known to the Minister of Finance of that day. We now look at Zambia and say, look, when this mechanism was being introduced, we had several meetings with business people. I attended 2 of those meetings at Bank of Zambia, where we are looking at the implementation. And the inputs coming from the large investors in Zambia, who are also large exporters, was, we don't need this. You are repeating a lot of things. They made references to VAT Rule 18, which only applies to VAT registered products, but when you look at copper and cobalt, they are not. They are zero rated. Therefore, VAT Rule 18 does not apply to them. So it took a lot of dialogue, but you could see that the dialogue was showing sentiments of we are not happy with this thing happening. Now, when you look at that and you connect it to the exchange rate, which is deteriorating, because seemingly the public perception is these people who are dissatisfied decided we are not going to be bringing in money into the country, let us apply a bit of pressure. And this pressure has indeed affected us. We've seen how kwacha deteriorate to 27 kwacha to $1. But there is one provision in the export proceeds tracking framework which is yet to be exhausted. And that provision is that when you export a product, you are given 90 days in which to bring your export earnings into a Zambian bank domiciled in Zambia. What is today? 39 days or 40 days after. So a lot of these companies may be saying, we're going to run the 90 days. We'll bring this money with it at the end of 90 days and for compliance reasons. But for Zambia, I think this is what they call the calm before the storm. It's quiet, the kwacha is looking bad, but by the end of March, which will be 90 days, they have to comply, and the estimates, in my own view, of the numbers that I've looked at, and again looking at commodity prices, if we look at copper as the prime export product, $8,200 a ton, roughly gives you $820,000 every 3 trucks that leave this country. It's close to $1 million. So I can see that come the end of March, we should be seeing revenues coming in the order of between $25 and $35 million per day. Now, it starts to have an impact, the one you are talking about. When you've got 25 to 35 million US dollars coming in every day in deposits in our banking system, immediately your interest rates have to collapse on the dollar. Immediately the demand on the dollar comes to almost zero because there's too much dollar around. And you find because the demand on the dollar comes to almost zero, you begin to a situation where the kwacha starts to exponentially begin to improve in value. My predictions is by June this year we should see a 15 kwacha dollar. Because
we'll go down that low.
Yes, and the reason why is that our economy is too small to absorb 30 million US dollars a day. It's too small. We don't have enough people to give money and say, here loans, go and run your businesses. It will take a while for our economy to catch up and borrow that kind of money from the banking system. Because remember, if I'm an exporter and I'm being pushed to bring my export earnings into Zambia, I'm not going to put in a current account. I want to put in a fixed deposit account, 3% interest on the dollar. So for that bank to accept my $1 million of deposits per day out of $30 million, that bank has to find quick customers to loan out this money at 5-6% to be able to make a margin to pay me back my money with interest and make money for themselves. So what happens, our banking system has to go into overdrive. In fact, one of my biggest concerns is that our banking system is not ready. Because I believe if the biggest bank in Zambia is, with the most branches, is employing 5,000 employees, they need 50,000 employees in order to manage this kind of rolling of cash. Because you can no longer cover loans with collateral. You have to now do risk management. I'm giving you this money, I know you have no collateral, I'm paying your supplier. Your supplier will deliver the material to your factory. I have one of my officers coming to your factory every week to make sure that the money is being put into production and make sure that your sales money is being deposited in the bank.
Is our economy ready for that kind of money? And if so, in what sectors? Or is it that once this money comes in, because of course the banks can't just keep it.
They can't.
They need to find
yes. And to make matters worse, the Bank of Zambia is going to now do a total reverse. From 26% statutory reserves, it will come down to below 8, below 5%, because they want the kwacha to circulate to buy the dollar, to grow the economy. But the thing is that the beauty about foreign currency being in our banking system means you are not channeling it to a specific economic area. It's dynamic. You who has got a house in Woodlands and you've got your 4 bedrooms, you've turned into a guest house, you are charging 300 for 4 rooms. If you are lucky, you are making 1,000 a day, 2,000 a day. But it's just enough to meet your bread and butter needs. You walk into a bank and say, I've got a beautiful plot, I'm situated in a very good place, I want to build a 50-room motel. That bank that is sitting on cash will say, give us your title deeds, here's the money, we'll pay the contractor, build your 40-room motel. Now, how much money are you earning? Suddenly, from 1,000, 2,000 per day, you are looking at 20,000, 30,000 per day in revenues from the size of your business investment. Now, imagine the whole country is seeing this in bakery equipment, in guest houses, in taxis, yangos, in minibuses, in all kinds of economic activity. You get broad-based economic growth in our country.
Now you're giving a very optimistic view. $15 looking at the current trading of 27.
Yeah.
You've mentioned correctly of the SI 55, which has come in with a different name.
Yes.
Then the government could not hold on to that. They had to scrap it. Do you think the government will be able to withstand the current pressure that is on the kwacha?
That's the $5 billion question. I believe that in 2013, it was not the government, it was an individual who succumbed.
Okay.
And that individual could have succumbed for personal reasons. But the government of the day, if our government is resilient, if it is focused, if it is committed and is ready to stay the course, this change will come very, very rapidly. And it's just basic law of supply and demand. You've got too much dollar in your banking system. By default, your kwacha will become stronger. Your interest rates will come down. Your inflation rates will come down because stronger dollar means an immediate, the strengthening of the kwacha, stronger kwacha is a direct attack on the inflation rate.
Yeah.
So I believe that if we stay the course, this will be a game changer for our economy. Not only a game changer for our economy, but a game changer for Zambian citizens.
Yeah.
Because it's not selecting the top upper mwamba class or just the vulnerable or just retirees. It's the banking system. The banking system looks at every player in the Zambian market and says, how can we help you? And it will drive a push factor in the banking system. What do I mean by that? The push factor is the bank is looking for customers. The pull factor is where you are queuing up in a bank and the bank is choosing, yes, you will help you, no, you don't qualify. It will be the other way around because, as we were saying earlier, the bank has to loan out that money in order to pay the depositor. So to me, I think that that has an impact on what you queried, our exchange rate. I should see the kwacha immediately, exponentially get stronger. We should see the monetary policy rate come down. We should be able to see the inflation rate come down. We should be able to see prices come down. Our country is 80 to 90% import dependent. And how do you figure that out? Just go into a shop and count how many items are made in Zambia. It's food. Food, beverages, the butters, jams and things, the tomato sauce. But look at your hardware. All hardware is imported. All electricals are imported. All car spares are imported. All clothing is imported. Shoes are imported. So basically, we are an import-dependent country, and therefore the dollar makes sense. There was somebody who argued that it doesn't help because you can't convert the dollar to kwacha because it's being held in dollar accounts. Would I want to borrow kwacha? What would I want to borrow kwacha for? I would rather borrow the dollar because when I borrow the dollar, straight away it goes to China. 6 weeks later, my container is landing here, and my economy is a kwacha economy. So those products which are brought into Zambia, price them, I'm selling them for kwacha. I don't need to borrow kwacha. I make the kwacha. What I need to borrow is the dollar. So basically, this would turn the economy around, and these factors, the economic factors we are talking about, will be taken care of. One of the biggest things that I think is so important about this, I said earlier, it's about diversified development of the economy because nobody's choosing.
So you are watching the economic briefcase and we are discussing the state of the economy. Feel free to send in your text messages, use the number scrolling down on your screen there. Feel free to also call us. Later we'll be opening the phone lines.
Yes. So go ahead. Yeah. So that's one thing. The second biggest thing about this whole export proceeds tracking framework is that we start not only to build our Zambian businesses, but they start to take over the economy. Right now, 80% of our GDP is being driven by 25 multinational investors in Zambia, out of 20 million people. Now, if we start having a shift where more Zambians are becoming rich, if you like, growing their businesses, they start paying taxes. You know what's going to happen? Right now, the 2024 national budget, 17% of our budget is supposed to be funded by foreign financing and grants. We are begging. We're asking people to help us. And obviously, when you ask someone to help you, they say on one condition, on this condition, on that condition. The day you and me are paying enough taxes for us to finance our budget 100% from tax collections by ZRA, that's the day we stop taking advice from people whose advice we don't need. Because we're able to finance our own budget. We're able to take care of ourselves. And then we start moving towards the road to raising revenues to service our foreign obligations. This $16 billion debt that we have, which at the moment is still unresolved. Because we're talking of part of it being negotiated, but the paperwork doesn't appear to be there. So it's still a big question mark, absolutely.
So with the funds, the Forex having come into Zambia after the 90-day period, what next? Are they obliged to keep it in Zambia?
No, not at all. And this is the folly that people have. I sat on the board of a bank for many years, more than a decade, here in Zambia. And the easy money that you have in a bank is money which you don't have an obligation towards. What do I mean? If a person gives you a fixed deposit of dollar or kwacha, you have to work to make profit to pay him back with his interest. Anything. But the easiest money is the one that comes in current accounts. Yeah. The money you deposit every day from your business, and you are free to withdraw it whenever you want. That's free money. Because as a bank, I even charge you for looking after that money. But the way it works is that the float in a bank is determined by the deposits. If you are receiving a deposit every day of 1 million kwacha in a bank, you can afford to lend 1 million kwacha out. Because every day it's being replaced. So even the one who deposited yesterday, if he wants it, you can give him. Yeah. Because another one who's depositing to cover you. Yeah. So this thing of float is exactly what this economy will have. $30 million a day of float. Which means that we are able to finance any kind of development in this country, and at the same time, the depositors at will can ask for their money and take it wherever they want. But remember, moving money from an economy is not like taking money. In fact, even when you take money from this pocket, put in this pocket, you have to make sure that there's no holes in the pocket. Otherwise, you lose the money, right? But it's not that easy, because you see, if I want to move $1 million from my account in Zambia to an account in New York, under anti-money laundering laws, under the drug trafficking, under the anti-terrorism laws, the bank will say, where are you sending this money to? And why? And then I must show a document.
But wouldn't it have been a good thing if they were obligated to keep this money at least for a certain period?
No. You see,
in Zambian banks.
No, you don't need it. You absolutely do not need it. If you are depositing $30 million a day, it means you have $30 million to lend. If that $30 million stays for 5 days, that's 30 times 5, $150 million. And believe me, there's no money that will come on Monday and leave on Tuesday. The banking system just is not sharp enough to do that. Because I deposit $1 million today, I tell my bank I need to pay $1 million to Komatsu in Japan. They say to me, can you show us the invoice from Komatsu? Can you show us, show evidence that we are going to pay a genuine bill? Because we are scared that you might be giving this money to some drug trafficking institution or some anti-terrorism or some terrorist organization. So there's the slowness of this paperwork, which let's even say call it fast, and say you go on Monday, your money leaves on Friday. That's 5 days later. That means you have been accumulating $30 million for 5 days. That's $150 million. $150 million per day is a lot of money for the Zambian economy. So why do you want to keep somebody's money? No need. And when that person wants to take it out, on what basis? You think they are going to fake documents? To say, I've got a loan here, let me make a fake document. When you find out that that company is in big trouble. And a smart nation is not one that closes that company down. It's one that takes away more money from him. You find him.
On a lighter note, some economies have actually strived on money that, let's say...
Depositors.
There's some investors who don't really like being watched.
Yeah.
And some economies have actually thrived on not being... accepting these, these investors. When that kind of...
that
deter some investors?
No. You see, there are 2-3 countries around the world whose business is looking after people's money. Switzerland, there are some countries in the Caribbean, there are some offshore financial havens in the Channel Islands. Singapore, Hong Kong used to be those type of places. But these were just places where you said, I want to put my money where I feel it's very safe. The world has now developed much more sophisticated. It doesn't matter where your money is now. What's important is how quickly you can track it. So, the argument that if you keep money in this country, it will make investors very jittery, is very true. You know, if I'm a foreigner, I come into Zambia and I want to invest in Zambia, the last thing I want is for Zambia to say, you can never take this money out of the country. But Zambia is smart enough to say, if you brought in $1 million and you are running a business, which business makes you $2 million within 2 weeks? That you can take all your money out? You can't. You have bought property, you have invested. You are paying employees. So the bulk of your money actually stays in the very economy where you are making. What you take out of profits. And Zambia allows you to take out your profits. So we are a very investor-friendly country. The only thing is, I think we have been a bit delinquent as an international best practice operator by allowing money to go, millions of dollars, and then when they ask you, where is that money being kept? You say, I don't know. Which one is Zambia's biggest trading partner? Switzerland. What do we export to Switzerland? Nothing. But the paperwork says 90% of our copper actually goes to Switzerland. So you can see Switzerland is getting the money, but it's not actually getting the copper.
The copper leaves here and goes to where it's going to, to the end user, and the paperwork sits there.
In Switzerland. Absolutely. And who's benefiting from it? The same way I'm saying us Zambians can borrow and build our business. It's the Swiss people. Some of them will even borrow that money, your money, Zambian money. Of course it belongs to an investor, but it's your money. They will borrow it and come and give you a loan. You, Zambia, you get a loan from your own money. So this is the kind of thing that we think needs to be addressed.
So now, how should our viewers get ready for this? You've given us a projection saying by mid-year at least we should be able to see the kwacha come back to 15 against a dollar. How should our viewers be ready for this? I'm sure thanks to the import-export framework. How should our viewers be ready for this development?
I believe that this is a time for us to prepare. The opportunity is round the corner. It is 60 days away, and after that, every Zambian should have that business plan of theirs. Do that proper business plan. Whether you want to expand the size of your lodge, your transport company, your retail business, your manufacturing business, your farming business, whatever it is, do a good business plan that when it's taken to a bank, the bank will say, this is great. Because sooner than later, the bank will come knocking at your door and say, we're ready to give you money. Do you have a plan? So be ready to have that plan, because that money is coming your way.
Director, do we have messages? Director, do we have messages? No messages.
Okay. So, earlier you had stated how part of the ways these multinationals have been able to externalize funds is through the management fees, the interest rates that are high. So with this coming in, where money is expected to be in Zambia, don't we expect that to even worsen? Because that would be like a way of externalizing those funds.
Well, you see, the danger with a situation where you have to manipulate is that you are committing fraud. Now, any multinational company must be very careful about committing fraud. If you saw what happened with a certain mining company that had a presence in Zambia, they were fined $900 million in the United States. for corruption. They were fined $300 million in the UK for corruption. The same company, 1.2 billion. So I think that yes, it may push certain unscrupulous investors to start making fraudulent paperwork, but unfortunately, once you start putting your signature on papers, there's a paper trail, and that paper trail will follow you. And you know that with civil cases, they have a statute of limitations. After 3 years, 4 years, you can't file a case. But as you know, with criminal cases don't rot. They don't get old. So I think it's there will be a discouragement. Also, the fact that you have an economy which you are able to fund yourself as a nation means your DEC, your anti-money laundering units and all those, you now have the capacities to strengthen them. You now have the capacity to do your due diligence. Somebody shows you a contract and says, we have a management contract here for $10 million for 5 employees per month. You can go and find out, where did it come from? When was it signed? Who are these people? Is this a subsidiary of this one? Which is, you start finding issues like what we call transfer pricing, where you sell it cheap to your own company abroad, so that you pay less taxes in Zambia, and then from abroad you sell it at the market rate to a third party. Well, you can do the same thing with contracts. You can sign a contract with your own company abroad and put exorbitant charges. But you see, those things can be taken to court, and in the different courts of law, they will look at what is the norm. What is going on here? Is there insider planning? And once you start colluding like that, it starts to become fraud, because now you are trying to defraud a government. So I believe that a lot of the things that we have experienced that have gotten away, they've gotten away because we don't have the capacity to chase after it. But once we start funding our own budget, we start strengthening our budget, it makes good sense to pay a Zambian very good money to do his or her investigations and save the country $1 million, $10 million, $20 million. It's a very good trade-off. So, but I think, you know, as in most things, prevention is better than cure. And, you know, I always tell people, if you put CCTV in a building, start by putting a lot of signs that say, this property is being monitored by CCTV. Because you want to prevent, you're not interested in catching anybody. You want to stop people from doing these types of things. So to that extent, I think that government would publicize the effort to be making to stop fraud, to stop under-invoicing, to stop understating the business activities that businesses are doing. And this is not just to foreign investors or multinational investors, to the entire country, to everybody, that we must pay our taxes, and if we are making good money, why not? So I don't see it as a big challenge.
So we are opening the phone lines. Feel free to call in. Use the numbers scrolling down on your screen. Feel free to make your contributions. Call us, tell us where you're calling from, and make your contributions.
So in your interactions with the government through the PSMD, the PSDA, I must mention to our viewers that Mr. DODIA is chairperson of the Private Sector Development Association. Do you think the government has done its homework through this the proceeds?
I believe some homework was done. You know, we've had interaction at the Bank of Zambia, with the Bank of Zambia, with the Zambia Revenue Authority, with even the investors. This was all thanks to the public-private dialogue forum that organized these meetings. And I'm sure there are many other meetings which I may not have attended personally. I think a lot of work has been done, but I also feel that we have not fully appreciated the capacity of this framework to overload the economy. And so the challenges may be that, okay, instead of having all export proceeds coming in, can we step it? You know, 20% in the first year, 40% in the second year, 60% until you reach 100% over a 4 or 5 year period, if the economy cannot absorb this kind of money. Another option would be to look at the region and say, look, a local bank here that is sitting on $1 million every day of deposits, they've run out of customers in Zambia. So embrace Malawi, embrace Zimbabwe, embrace neighboring countries and expand.
We have our first caller. Sorry to cut you short.
Great, yeah.
We have our first caller.
Hello.
Good evening. Where are you calling us from? Give us your name.
Good evening. This is Wood Mukandawire. I'm calling from Luansha.
Mr. Mkandawire, go ahead and make your contribution.
Good evening, Mr. DODIA.
Good evening, Muriwuri.
Tilimakola Muriwuri namwe.
Chomene.
Sokuchiyoye Tumbuka.
That's as much Tumbuka as I know.
Okay, you can go ahead and make your contribution.
Okay. Yeah, I've been following the explanation that you have done. It's quite exciting. Now, if that situation will be like what you have said in maybe 90 days, now I'm thinking, why can't this excess dollar that will have come into the country be used, maybe mopped up by ZCCMIH, so that we can make use of it, so that we can process our gold, we can process our manganese, and do all those kind of things? Are we not able to make use of that? And what will be the situation of the small-scale miners? Can they take advantage of that to get machinery or what? Please, your comment on that one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mkandawire from Wansha.
Absolutely. I think ZCCMIH and small-scale miners can have access. They go to the banks and say, look, I'm mining emeralds in Ndola Rural there, Mapatizia or wherever it is, and you can borrow money to buy the excavation machinery, to buy all kinds of different machinery. Of course, all this is based on having a good business plan that the bank can accept. Because if the bank feels that you have not thought through the project well, obviously they will not fund you. As far as ZCCMIH is concerned, it's definitely something that they can do. But I think it's also important for us to recognize that, the government many years ago said the government has no business doing business, because in the private sector, you know that business is going to look after your family, is going to feed your family. When it's a government institution, you don't have that kind of responsibility. So the chances of a government institution actually doing very badly are much higher. But that's not to say that government cannot do it. I just think that their plan needs to be better. The way we manage state-owned enterprises needs to be needs better corporate governance. We saw what happened in Zambia Railways when a minister of transport appoints a board, but the president of the republic appoints a CEO. So the board and the CEO start fighting because they don't have the same bosses. We saw the same thing in ZESCO, where even the ZESCO MD had to be wheeled out of the office by the Minister of Energy. So we need to fix those corporate governance issues where responsibility can be squarely on the board, and that responsibility can be handed down to the management and held responsible. And then we have a hope of seeing parastatals actually doing much, much better. But the doors should not be closed to any institution that wants to borrow, that wants to invest. The plan must be sound.
So with that optimistic outlook, we're talking of 90 days and a few days or months from now. Now, the impact on the small-scale business person, let's say a trader in Comesa, with this depreciation of the kwacha, they have lost.
Now, yes.
With the current, yes. They have lost their capital.
Yes.
Don't you think the government should have put in like some austerity measures, short term, that would cushion that impact on a small-scale business person who depends on that small business?
I think we need to be careful of putting the cow in front of the the Scotch cat or the Scotch cat in front of the cow. We need to make the money. Right now, we need to see the framework produce results. As we see the Kwacha getting stronger, we have a situation where we can recapitalize the Citizens Economic Empowerment Commission and say, now, can you help those Zambians who need this kind of support? It should not be a handout. It should be something where a small man like me is at Comesa Market, I want 300,000 kwacha, which at that 15 kwacha to $1 is big money. I jump on the bus, I go to Dar es Salaam, I buy the things I want to buy, I bring them into the market, and I'm a happy man. And I'm paying back the Citizens Economic Empowerment Commission. But this means we are putting the cow in front of the Scotch cat. You know, the cow is strengthening the economy to start with, strengthening the kwacha. Then when you've strengthened the kwacha, you now have the capacity to offer support financing to small and medium-scale enterprises. And I think, and besides that, any bank which is going to be holding so much money is going to come up with mechanisms. Don't even worry about the government. A bank which is sitting on $1 million a day, and why am I saying $1 million? $30 million a day, we have got 17 or 18 bank names. So some of the big banks will be getting 2 million, but the smallest bank will get $1 million a day, if they so wish. Now, we have to get rid of that money. And there are no big companies that you can lend to. You have to now go to the markets and the small chaps and say, look, I'm ready to support you. I can, for example, you have a big supplier like Trade Kings. You can go to a whole place in Kawata and say, all you shops in Kawata, I'm willing to fund your purchases from Trade Kings as a bank. But you have to open accounts in my bank, you must deposit your money in my bank. And that shopkeeper is very happy that somebody is paying the bills for them, is giving them trade financing. So they'll come up with solutions. Banks will come up with solutions and projects and products that are going to be for SMEs, because the products for big companies get finished within a period of 2 weeks, because there were very few big companies. So for a bank to survive in the Zambian economy, they have to go down to the grassroots where the people are.
Mr. Dodia, you're saying that that person who has borrowed and from the bank with the house as a collateral, in the meantime, it means they'll lose out. Let's say because they have borrowed, we're talking of the current situation.
Yes.
Because of the kwacha, their capital is gone.
Yes.
And they have no capacity to pay the bank now.
Yes.
It means as we wait for that to materialize, they'll lose their property.
That's very possible. It's like cholera. We have a cholera outbreak, and you say there are people who are in ICU in hospital, and there are those who are getting sick, but we have found a new medicine. Unfortunately, the new medicine is going to be applied to those who are getting sick today. Those who are in ICU, the chance of dying are very high. That's unfortunately the situation you find yourself in. That those people who are in heavy debt at the moment, because of the exchange rate, are likely to be casualties. Now, if you are looking at special facilities, given that the kwacha gains strength, that's where government would then target and say, let us have a special fund for supporting the vulnerable companies, as opposed to just the general company that will go to a bank and get the support that they need. So your point well taken.
So this, to me, looks like the banks who need to do more work, more due diligence. And if the banks rush, it could be
catastrophic.
Yes, could be disastrous.
Absolutely.
Because looking at, I can relate it maybe to the, is it the housing bubble?
Yes, the real estate bubble. Yes.
Now, what would be the implications of this going not as planned?
Well, firstly, I don't think banks are there to lose money. I think banks they're risk averse. Yes, and they don't live in a bubble. You know, if you look at any bank in Zambia, apart from those are actually Zambian set up banks, most banks have got a bit of international connections. So they've seen the property bubble in the United States, what happened there. They've seen the what you call this cryptocurrency problems and things like that. So I think that banks are sharp enough. They've got enough experts to be able to see where it goes. But the point that I think is extremely important is that a bank can say, we are not ready to take on this money. You are giving us $1 million, we don't want it. I don't want it. I can't handle this money. Now, in order to stop a situation where you are getting $30 million a day coming in, and your exporter is saying, I brought this money into Zambia, but no bank wants to get my money. So then the whole framework collapses because your economy is not ready to receive it. So my view, even as far back as November, December when we were discussing it, my question has always been, are you, the banking sector, ready to take on such huge amounts of deposits? Do you have the manpower? Because clearly collateral is not going to be there. And that's why I'm saying a bank of 5,000 employees must go up to 50,000, 10 times more, because 80% of the customers walking in have got good ideas, they've got commitment, they want to do business, but they don't have the security. So you have to manage risk. You can cover risk with assets and collateral, but you can also manage risk and say, I'm not giving you the money, I'm paying your supplier. You see? I'm not giving you the money, I'm paying the guy who has the machinery. So that you guide this borrower to run a successful business, and they deposit the money in your bank and you get your money back and you give them their profit. You have to hand-hold them through the process. Now that hand-holding is what we call risk management. And our banks need to engage in huge number of employees into risk management, because every loan must be seen as a potential loss to that bank. And to avoid that loss, that risk has to be managed. So that to me would be one of the challenges I'd be concerned about in the execution of this framework.
We are discussing the states of the economy here on Camel TV, on the Economic Briefcase. Feel free to send us your text messages and give us a call and make your contributions on the numbers on your screen. So as here we have some messages. Good evening, panel. As poor Zambians can do business, but the rates are very high. Hence, the cost of doing business is high. For example, here in Kawe, the rates are high as compared to Lusaka with industries.
Yeah, that's a very, very clear complaint.
Looking at the current state of our economy and the rate at which the dollar is buying and selling, is it safer to save money in cryptocurrency or dollar in the long run? Because from historical analysis, the value of the dollar against a kwacha will depreciate in the next 3 months, meaning if I have saved money in dollar, I will automatically lose money.
Very true.
I think we can read 2 more. Thank God for this man. He is so wise. He has talked about everything and how things must be done properly concerning the economy. Ben Copperbelt Chambeshi.
Yes, well, some very interesting comments there.
Yes.
I like the comment from Kabwe, talking about the cost of doing business. The other colleague, cryptocurrency, when my son was asking me about it, I said, keep away from that stuff. Because you don't have an international standard for cryptocurrency. It can be there tomorrow and it can disappear the next day. So at the moment, the dollar is still a very safe currency to hold your money in. But looking at this export proceeds tracking framework, I think from the end of February, I'd rather you keep your money in kwacha and go and buy a cheap dollar at the end of March. And then you can import twice as much as what you are going to import today. But in terms of the cost of doing business, one of the big challenges, no matter how strong our kwacha is our capacity to be competitive. And one of the challenges we have with being competitive is the cost of energy. 15, 20 years ago, as a nation, we decided to commercialize the energy sector. We decided to privatize quite a bit of it. And I think we are suffering the consequences today. When the ERB is telling us that we are going to have 3 years of increased tariffs, it's not to do with ZESCO as far as I'm concerned. It's to do with those companies that are supplying ZESCO. Because remember, a private company that's supplying ZESCO with electricity has what we call a PPA. a power purchase agreement. And that power purchase agreement is higher than the rate that ZESCO is selling that electricity to you and me. So clearly ZESCO wants a higher tariff to pay that person. And why are we subsidizing a foreign investor? That's my argument.
Yes.
You know, if ZESCO owned Iteshi Power Station, if ZESCO owned Mamba Power Stations, we would not be looking to subsidize a third-party investor. We'd be saying this is a state-owned enterprise, and as a sovereign nation, if we feel electricity must be kept low in order to build industry in Zambia, so be it. But now we can't do it because we've got private investors who want to make money out of it. And you cannot tell a private investor, we want you to run your business at a loss. So Europe privatized 30 years ago. They commercialized and privatized. Now you ask me, which country in Europe is producing anything? Zero. The Philips of Holland, they don't produce in Holland anymore, it's in China. The ITT, the Germans make precision equipment. Even their cars, if you look at the German cars, the Mercedes, Audi, VW, Porsche, BMW, the parts are being made in China and they are being assembled in Germany. Why? Because the German economy is too expensive to produce these things. So what has happened is the European economies who have exported all their factories to the Far East. And what you are seeing in Europe now is agriculture, because it's a strategic product. You can't allow other people to feed you, you must feed yourself, which is heavily subsidized. And then you've got the services industry, banking, insurance, those things like that. And then of course the assembling of the cars, so that they can have a European name and still carry the value of a European product. But the commercialization and privatization of energy in Europe has led to a recession in Europe. This is what has made China have growth numbers of between 5 and 10% GDP growth year on year in the last 10 to 20 years. Because people wanted cheap Chinese labor, they wanted cheap Chinese energy, and they got it. But look how it has built China. So, yes, so for Zambia, we need to ask ourselves, did we make the right decision 15, 20 years ago to commercialize and privatize? And we are seeing it happen not only with electricity, but we are seeing it with the fuel. And Indeni has been closed for how long now? And then, you know, when I talk to common people, not clever people like us who have been to university, just a common village person, they will say, but my friend, I'm not understanding the logic of fuel. And I say, what do you mean? And he says to me, I have a farm here, I have 5 hectares of maize. I would be a fool to sell all my maize to a milling company and then go and buy my meal from a supermarket at 300 kwacha for. I keep 20 bags to feed my family because I gaya that maize, and to me, instead of it being 300 kwacha per bag, I'm getting it at less than 150 kwacha per bag. Now, if that logic applies to a common villager, why we who are in town and so smart do we think that it's cheaper for us to import fuel, refined fuel, than to buy feedstock, pump it on a pipeline, which is much cheaper than a truck, trucking these tankers, all the way to Ndola, process it in Ndola, where you get diesel, petrol, kerosene, and LPG, the gas, and then sell it to your people. It's at your doorstep, you are the one adding value. If you can't make that a success, then you really are living in another age. Because even your villager knows that makes good sense. So for us in Zambia, I think we need to go back and reflect on the energy sector and say to ourselves, I think we made a mistake. Let's correct the path. The path is that you resuscitate Indeni, you continue to feed it, you upgrade it with a hydrocarbon cracker so that it can process crude oil. In 1970-71, when Indeni was set up, the reason why they didn't want to put a hydrocarbon cracker is because we are going to have 10% or so of our feedstock being thrown away because it was coming out like mud. That's the residue. So we said, clean it up in Saudi Arabia. Give us what is going to be the commingled, which is going to be refined almost 100%. But today we've got steel factories, we've got huge industries, smelters, that can use that heavy fuel. And therefore, we upgrade Indeni. And if we say Indeni is too small, build another one. Have you ever seen somebody say, I've got a milling company, I want to close it down and build another one? No. Industry is designed in such a way that it can be upgraded, it can be automated, and it can be it can grow horizontally. So you build another plant, another Indeni plant next to the current one, and double your capacity. So we need to think about that. We need to think about the country taking control of the energy sector for the good of the growth of the economy. And the philosophy around this is very simple. I am very much in agreement that we give free education to our people, and we're doing it, grade 1 to grade 12. Fantastic. You want to have a nation of educated people. I'm also very happy that we have the National Health Insurance Management Agency. Yeah. We're literally giving free health care, paying 20, like me, I'm a senior citizen, I don't pay.
I was actually amazed on how it worked. I think I used NEMA to get this.
To get your glasses. If I went into a private optician to get the glasses you are wearing, nothing less than 3,000 to 4,000 kwacha. And I'm sure you got it. We won't talk, but it's a small amount. So these are good things. These are good things that we do to protect our people. Keep our people educated, keep them healthy. You do the same thing with energy.
I think
energy does it for your economy. Keep your economy healthy, keep your economy growing through energy, electricity and fuel.
Since this quarter has been dedicated to the state of the economy, we are yet to discuss more. At least today we've touched a lot on the exchange rates, the export-import framework and how it stands to benefit a common Zambian and the Zambian economy at large. But that energy part of the conversation sounds really interesting, that it deserves its own
absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Its own segment.
Absolutely. And one thing that Zambia has, which is very unique, we have 4 lakes. Lake Tanganyika, second deepest lake in the world. Lake Kariba, which we made. Lake Mweru, Lake Bangweulu. Those are 4 major lakes. That's how much water we have. Let's talk of the big rivers. Luangwa, Zambezi, Kafue, Luapula, Luzempwa. That's already 5. And there's a couple of it, Chambeshi and others. So Zambia has capacity to generate, at the moment we are generating about 3 gigawatts of power, hydroelectric power. We have capacity to generate as much as 12 gigawatts, 4 times our national needs, if we invested in the energy sector. Just Batoka Gorge alone, the Batoka Gorge power station, is supposed to produce 2,400 megawatts, almost the entire production that we are doing today. And the beauty, you saw it on Kafui. We have Kafui Gorge and we have Kafui Gorge Lower. The same river producing 2 power stations. So we have capacity to produce a whole lot of hydroelectric power, which we use for developing our economy and which we can export into neighboring countries. So the future, in terms of energy for Zambia, is very, very good if we just take the right decisions.
You've been watching the Economic Briefcase right here on CAM TV. CAMNET TV, not just another channel. As we close off, as we come to the end of our program, Mr. Sichone, any last comments?
As you've stated, we haven't covered not even half of the economic outlook. We just look forward to hosting you, Mr. Dojan, next time to discuss a lot of things that have been left hanging. You've talked of energy and many other sectors. We've just scratched we've introduced the topic. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. You've been watching the Economic Briefcase. We were discussing the state of the economy with our guest, Mr. YUSUF DODIA, and my co-host, Mr. Sichone. I've been your host, Njapao Noah. Pleasant evening.